Welcome to the deep dive. We are really staring into the theological abyss today, aren't we?
We certainly are.
We're tackling something, well, profoundly difficult, a question that kind of forces us to reconsider the very nature of reality itself.
Yeah, it's a big one.
How does this idea of true, unchanging, eternal infinity relate to, our world, our familiar but, let's face it, fundamentally limited world of time and space? Oogries, as the source calls it.
It's definitely more than just a philosophical puzzle, isn't it? It's almost an ontological crisis when you really start grappling with the source material we're looking at today.
Right.
We've got this dense theological text here, and it's meticulously charting the boundaries between the realm of the creator, what the source calls always eternal, and the created realm, the tu-did.
The created realm, that's us. That's everything we know.
Exactly. Everything contained within these boundaries that we label time and space.
And our mission today, as we try to navigate this, well, often pretty esoteric material. It isn't just to summarize it, right?
No, not at all.
We want to really unpack the implications of these distinctions. We need to understand why. Why does the source material insist these realms are so fundamentally incompatible in their very nature?
And what that means for us.
Yeah, what it means for us, the created beings living inside this constrained container of reality. We're looking for the dividing lines, the essential mechanics of existence and non-existence, but seen from that eternal perspective.
And that separation is absolutely critical. The sources make it crystal clear. The creator's nature, defined by this eternal infinite while, is just radically different from anything we can experience or measure.
Or even properly think about.
Or even correctly conceptualize, we don't establish that transcendence right at the start. The whole thing kind of breaks down. It just becomes, speculation about a very, very large clockmaker, which isn't what the text is getting at.
Okay. So, let's get into it, rigorously, like you said, starting with the definition of the Creator's own domain, the nature of eternal infinity. The source says this is exclusively God's domain. Now, if I think of infinity, usually I'm picturing like a number line stretching out forever, or maybe space just expanding without end. How is this eternal infinity different?
That's a really common way to think about it, but it's key to see the difference. Your concept of infinity is still bounded by the idea of more, isn't it?
More, yeah, like extending something.
Right. It implies extension, duration, measurable quantity,
No.
even if that quantity is technically endless. But eternal infinity, according to this source, it's not just the infinite extension of time and space.
It's something else.
It's the reality that transcends those limits altogether. It's more like the ground of being that makes time and space possible in the first place.
Okay, I'm trying to visualize that.
Think of it this way. If you could fly through space literally forever, you'd still be in space. You'd still be within the created system, the confines of creation.
Right, still inside the box.
Exactly. Eternal infinity, on the other hand, is completely outside that entire measurement system. It's not more of the box. It's what the box itself exists within, metaphorically speaking.
Outside the possibility of measurement. That leads straight to the next point, doesn't it? The absence of created concepts in this eternal realm.
Precisely.
If there's no time, no past, present, future, and no space, then our whole framework for understanding reality just kind of collapses.
It does.
Concepts we rely on constantly, like existence O versus non-existence.
Yes.
Oh, they must be. Well, irrelevant from that perspective.
They have to be irrelevant to the creator because they are concepts born of limitation. For us, existence means occupying a specific place in time and space.
And non-existence means not doing that.
Right. But for God, who the source says sustains all things and calls things that are not into being, well, these labels just don't carry the same weight. They're almost like tools God uses within the created system he set up.
So, existence and non-existence are features of creation, not concepts that bind the creator.
That's the idea. If the creator is the source and sustainer of all reality, including even the potential for non-reality, then neither label existence or non-existence as we understand them can really define him.
I find that really hard to fully grasp. If we say God transcends even existence, doesn't that kind of limit our ability to talk about God meaningfully? I mean, we use the word being all the time to describe the creator.
We absolutely do. We use those terms because Well, they're the only tools we have in our language, right? And our language is built entirely on the foundations of time and space.
Our toolkit is limited.
Exactly. And the source text anticipates this difficulty. Basically says, look, we have to use limited human language to try and describe the unbounded, but we must never, ever mistake our limited description for the actual reality.
So when we say God is or exists,
We mean it in a totally different way, a qualitatively different transcendent sense compared to when we say, this chair is or exists.
okay, that distinction is crucial. And it brings us right to the next point. The sheer impossibility of comprehension.
Yeah, the source is incredibly blunt about this.
It says humans, we simply cannot truly know or measure eternal infinity. Our understanding is strictly limited to whatever the Creator chooses to reveal. It's like being told, you can only see the shadows I permit you to see.
And it uses that incredible analogy from Job, chapter 9, verse 10, to really drive this home. It reminds us that we struggle to even fully grasp the sun, something the source calls a mere speck of dust created by God, and yet we try to conceptualize the very nature of the Creator.
That puts it in perspective.
It really does. It's like an ant trying to figure out the inner workings of a supercomputer just by looking at one tiny light on the outside. The scale difference is just too vast.
We're basically speculating from the viewpoint of that speck of dust,
Mhm.
trying to figure out the nature of the existence that allowed the dust to be there in the first place,
Spot on.
which puts a necessary boundary around this whole conversation.
Yeah.
We're analyzing the definition of God provided by the source. We're not claiming we have full knowledge ourselves.
Precisely. It's about understanding the framework presented in the text. And the single most critical defining feature of this realm, this eternal infinite, according to the source, is the principle of unchangeability.
Right. It must be unchanging, always eternal, boon yours. If it wasn't, the text argues, the whole foundation of reality would be sort of compromised.
Exactly.
Okay, that's the part I really want to push on a bit. Why does perfection have to mean stasis? If God is capable of ongoing action, sustaining creation moment by moment, doesn't that imply some form of change or interaction? How does the source square that circle? Divine constancy versus ongoing action.
That's a central tension, for sure. And the source leans heavily on scripture here, like James 1.17, God having no variation or shifting shadow. The argument is intensely logical, almost mathematical in its structure.
Okay.
It says, if God were to change, that change would have to imply either improvement or degradation.
Right. Okay, makes sense.
If improvement were possible, it means God wasn't perfect before the change. If degradation were possible, well, then God would cease to be God, by definition.
So because God is defined as fundamentally complete, perfect, ultimate.
Change itself becomes impossible within the Creator's essential nature. Change, the source argues, is an artifact of the temporal system. It requires a before and an after. Eternal infinity doesn't have that structure.
Ah, okay. So the sustaining action we perceive in creation, the moment-to-moment upholding of time and space, that's an effect, something flowing from the unchanging God, but it doesn't represent change within God's own eternal infinite nature.
That's a great way to put it.
Like a river flows continuously, but the spring feeding it is constant, unchanging.
That's an excellent analogy. The river is the created realm, the ore. And now let's shift our focus squarely onto that river, the time-space system itself. This is the realm we inhabit, and it's defined entirely by its limits.
Time and space are essentially the boundaries. The container, maybe?
Yeah, the container is a good word. They define the context within which this created realm exists, can be sustained, or could theoretically cease to exist, be destroyed. It's the maximum size, if you like, of our reality.
And here we have to hammer home that critical contrast with eternal infinity again.
We really do, because our minds just naturally leap to that idea of infinite extension, don't they? A universe expanding forever, a clock ticking without end.
Yeah, that's the default infinity.
But the source completely rejects the idea that this kind of vastness equals eternal infinity. No matter how huge the universe gets, no matter how long time goes on, it's still a contained world. It exists within specific created parameters, and it's sustained by the Creator.
So if I picture eternal infinity as maybe the paper that reality is drawn on, then the universe, even if it were infinitely large on that paper, is still just the drawing on the paper. It's contingent. Dependent.
That's a perfect illustration. Exactly. It's contingent. And this is why we have to look closely at God's relationship to time. We are absolutely confined by it.
Totally. I can't just pop back to last Tuesday, much as I might want to sometimes.
Right. And you can't leap ahead to tomorrow until you actually experience the intervening moments. Our existence is strictly linear, sequential.
But God, according to the source, is defined differently, as existing now, but in every moment. How does that work?
Yes, the source insists that God sustains all moments simultaneously. God was present before time began, is present during every single moment of its progress, and is present after it concludes.
So from God's perspective, the entire history of time and space is already complete. It's like a single, massive, sustained now.
That's the concept, a single eternal now.
Okay, but that raises a huge theological challenge, doesn't it? I mean, I'm sure you listening are thinking about this too. If the entire timeline, my birth, my choices, my death, the end of the universe, everything is already a single known, completed now in God's mind. How does the source deal with genuine human free will? Doesn't this just scream determinism?
Yes, the million-dollar question. That's the crucial intersection point. And the source addresses this by drawing a line between God's perfect knowledge and God's active causation.
Okay, explain that difference.
God's knowledge is comprehensive, it's simultaneous. God knows the end from the beginning because, from the eternal perspective, the end is already present. It's part of that single now. But, the source argues, this knowledge doesn't negate the causal reality of free will operating within the time-space system. We experience our choices as they unfold sequentially, and those choices are genuinely ours within that framework, even though the entire trajectory of all choices is perfectly known to the Creator who sustains the whole timeline in one eternal instant.
So free will operates inside the limits of time.
While divine knowledge operates outside of time, encompassing it.
Okay, maybe an analogy helps here. Is it like watching a movie for the 10th time? You know exactly what choices the characters will make, you know, the dialogue, the ending. But they still have to act out those choices within the film's reality. Your knowing doesn't stop their acting.
That's actually a really good parallel, yes.
Yeah.
Your knowledge as the viewer doesn't negate the character's agency within the narrative of the film.
Okay, that helps frame it. And that idea that the whole timeline is known and sustained simultaneously, that seems vital as we move into the next section. Because even with this simultaneity, the source says the creation project isn't finished yet. It's not perfect.
Exactly. Despite being held in this eternal now, the content of the created realm isn't yet perfected.
Right. So if the whole project, the whole timeline is already known and sustained, why the need for this completion event that the source talks about describes creation as still ongoing, needing this, well, pretty dramatic intervention to be finished within the time-space system.
The intervention is necessary precisely because the system is sustained within time and space as they currently exist contain the possibility of imperfection. Specifically, the source focuses on sin mine.
Sin as an imperfection within the system.
Yes. And this leads us to the mission of the second person of the Godhead to issue. The text posits this ultimate paradox. The creator must actually become a created being.
Okay, hold on. Why? Why must the creator enter the system, confine himself like that? If the creator is all-powerful, couldn't he just, extinguish sin from the outside? Zap it out of existence?
It's a question of maybe jurisdiction or the integrity of the system itself. The source argues that sin isn't just a moral mistake. It's presented as a kind of ontological corruption that happens inside the established rules of time and space.
So the solution has to come from inside, too.
For the eradication to be permanent, just, and for creation itself to be perfected without simply being wiped out and started over, the argument goes, the mechanism of perfection has to be deployed from within that corrupted boundary.
And the only one capable.
The only entity powerful enough to actually reverse the damage, but also capable of operating as a created being, subject to the laws of the system he created, is the second person of the Godhead.
Wow. Okay. A paradoxical requirement of jurisdiction, like you said. So the main job, the primary function of the second person taking on created form is to fully extinguish the possibility of sin and death within this time-space realm.
Exactly. That act is what completes the creation. And the source gives a pretty clear roadmap for how this completion happens, referencing the role of kingship, specifically drawing from 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 24 to 28.
Okay, 1 Corinthians 15. And this isn't just like a symbolic kingship.
No, the source presents it as a functional theological sequence of operations, a necessary phase.
Let's break down that sequence then. What is the second person actually doing as king during this phase?
Well, the verses describe the second person reigning as king and that until is key until he has destroyed every rule and every authority and power. It's an active reign with a specific goal.
Destroying opposing powers within creation.
Yes. And the text explicitly names the final, ultimate enemy to be destroyed, death itself. So this kingship is a necessary temporal function. It's designed specifically to overcome all the consequences of sin, death, decay, imperfection operating within that time-space boundary. It's the active, purifying, and perfecting phase for the entire cosmos.
Okay, so he reigns, he purifies, he conquers death. And once that's done, once all enemies, including death, are gone, what happens then?
Then the text says, the completed creation, the time-space system, now made permanent, perfected, entirely cleansed, is presented or handed over to the first person of the Godhead.
Handed over.
Yes. And the ultimate stated goal, the purpose of this whole cosmic drama, is that God, the first person, may be all in all.
It's the final synthesis.
So the cosmos, having gone through this, well, painful process of purification via the second person's reign,
Is brought into a state of perfect harmony and completion, where the first person of the Godhead becomes the encompassing reality for it. The mission of the second person as king is then complete because he has rendered the created realm permanently compatible with the perfection demanded by the eternal infinite.
Okay, that makes the second person's kingship this absolutely essential transitional phase. It's the bridge between the current flawed reality and the final perfected eternal reality. Precisely. And this whole complex task is necessary because of that inherent flaw or potential flaw embedded in creation from the start. The problem of created free will and sin.
Right. This is where it gets really profound, I think. The source's argument about free will.
It really is. The argument is stark. If a created being is granted genuine free will, they are by definition distinct from the creator. They have a measure of independence.
And that independence means?
It inherently means they possess the possibility of making a wrong choice, the possibility of error, the possibility of sin.
And the source treats this possibility almost
Yeah.
mathematically, like a probability.
It kind of does, yeah. It argues that if that possibility is anything greater than zero, even an infinitesimally small chance, like 0.1%, then, given enough time within the vast sweep of the time-space system.
That being will eventually fall into sin. It's like the inevitability of rolling dice forever.
Exactly. It's framed as the inevitability of the eternal dice roll. If you roll dice for an eternity, even a 1 in a trillion chance must eventually happen. It becomes a certainty given enough opportunity.
So, free will, when combined with the potential for infinite duration or just vast stretches of time, is inherently like a ticking clock counting down to imperfection.
That's the logical conclusion the source presents. And it necessitates the necessity of completion.
That has to be fixed.
It has to be. For the eternal infinite, God's realm, to remain perfect and unchanging, and for the created realm to somehow exist eternally without that imperfection cropping up again, the very possibility of sin must be totally extinguished.
Not just the current sin, but the future potential for it.
Correct. If there remained even a theoretical chance that a perfected eternal future could be ruined by another fall millions of years down the line, then the whole project would still be flawed. It would still be incompatible with the always eternal nature of God. The completion phase has to eliminate the potential for sin, root, and stem.
Okay. But how do created beings reach this state of permanent righteousness without becoming God themselves? That seems like a crucial line not to cross. This is the path to perfection.
Absolutely critical distinction. Created beings achieve this permanent righteousness not inherently. They don't become self-existent sources of perfection like the Creator.
So how?
They achieve it, the source says, by perfectly reflecting the image of the second person, the one who entered creation. They are transformed over time, or through whatever process, to completely resemble the Son.
So it's a derived perfection.
Exactly. Once they fully reflect this image, the very disposition, the orientation of their will, becomes permanently fixed towards righteousness. The possibility of sin is eliminated not because their free will is removed, but because their free will is perfected. They would simply never choose to deviate because their nature has been fully harmonized with God's.
So their free will is completed, secured, perfected. Yet they remain created beings, still tethered to the created world.
Yes. They are eternally righteous, existing forever, but still only within the perfected time and space system. That's the immovable boundary.
They don't transcend their creaturehood.
Never. They can't claim to have existed before they were made. They can't operate outside the necessity of the time and space system that sustains them, even in its perfected state. They are perfected creations, permanently housed within that perfected, cleansed boundary.
Perfect reflections, as you said, not the original source of the light.
Precisely. And this definition of perfection is key. It's the complete harmonization of the created will with the Creator's will. This ensures permanent stability within the cosmos, creating a state that's finally ready for that ultimate handover for God to be all in all.
Okay, we've established the boundaries, the need for completion, the role of the second person. Now we have to tackle maybe the most conceptually challenging part. How does the Creator, from that standpoint of the eternal infinite, actually perceive our reality? We're so locked into dualisms, real versus unreal, existence versus non-existence.
Right. And the Source argues the Creator operates beyond those binaries entirely.
Let's start with this idea, God as the God of both existence and non-existence. For us, in our time-space system, it's simple. Existence is being, non-existence is not being. That's it.
But the Source emphasizes God's transcendent power over these concepts. God is the only true being, in the ultimate sense, the only one capable of acting upon both concepts as if they were, well, materials to work with.
How so?
God calls non-existence into existence. That's the foundational act of creation, right? Making something from nothing, from the state of not being.
Yeah.
And conversely, God commands existence back into non-existence. Think of the promised destruction of death, evil, the fate of the lost, things ceasing to be in the way they were.
Okay, so this implies that, to the Creator, non-existence isn't really a void. It's not an emptiness or a true nothingness that's separate from God.
Exactly. It's more like a latent state, a potential reality or potential non-reality that is already somehow contained within God's capabilities, within God's ultimate sovereignty. God holds the source code, if you will, for both being and non-being.
Wow, okay. Because if non-existence were truly outside of God's power or reality,
God wouldn't be ultimate. God wouldn't be the source of all things, including the possibility of things not being. And this just completely collapses our usual understanding of reality, leading to this idea of the relativity of reality.
right, if God sustains all moments, past, present, future simultaneously, as one eternal now, and if God transcends our basic categories of existence and non-existence,
And the big question is, does God truly consider our reality existent in the same way we define and experience it? Or does God perhaps view our existence and our non-existence as almost equally irrelevant concepts from the sublime perspective of the eternal infinite?
that's deeply unsettling, isn't it? If the entire cosmos, with its billions of years of history, is sustained by the Creator as just a single timeless moment, a sustained thought, perhaps, like you hinted earlier.
Then our subjective experience of reality, our intense struggle to define what's real and what's not, our whole philosophical enterprise. It might just be an artifact of our temporal confinement, a feature of being inside the box.
So from that higher perspective, our reality might be like the theological equivalent of a highly complex simulation, something sustained moment by moment, where the difference between existing and not existing is just a flick of a divine switch.
It's a possibility the text forces us to consider. The source doesn't definitively say it's a simulation, but it pushes our definitions to the breaking point.
It is genuinely unsettling. We operate under this intense, innate conviction that our reality is the ultimate reality. And the source suggests this reality might just be one highly elaborate boundary condition maintained by the eternal infinite, and perhaps not ultimate at all in the way we think. Our psychological, our philosophical boundaries just crumble.
They really do. And the source uses some incredibly powerful cosmic metaphors to try and help us grasp this mind-bending scale difference, while always acknowledging the profound limitations of human perception.
We're trapped, aren't we, by the dualism of dream versus reality. We literally cannot conceive of a category of existence that transcends both of those.
We can't. Our minds aren't built for it.
So let's look at the first metaphor the source uses, the dream analogy, referencing Psalm 73, verse 20. It raises the possibility that our entire time and space and everything created within it might be merely a dream or perhaps a sustained thought to the Creator.
The implication there is just enormous, isn't it? Because when we wake up from a dream, what happens?
The events vanish. The pain, the joy, the struggle, it's immediately negated. It wasn't real in the waking sense.
Exactly. But the source has to wrestle with the moral weight of creation, especially the reality of suffering within it. If the cosmos is a dream to God, what does that mean for the great acts of pain? What about the agony of the cross, the ultimate sacrifice of the second person, the Creator entering the creation?
That's the crux, isn't it? If the entire time-space system is like a dream, then the cross itself would be an incredibly agonizing dream sequence, sustained by the Creator. It would be painful and real according to the dream's internal rules, but perhaps it wouldn't challenge the ultimate transcendent reality of the dreamer, the eternal infinite.
And the source seems to suggest we simply cannot know which category it ultimately falls into from God's perspective. Is the cross an ultimate non-negotiable reality even to the Creator, demonstrating the profound seriousness with which God takes creation? Or is it a painful, necessary, sustained conceptual reality, a dream that had to be enacted within the system to conclude it, purify it, and then integrate the perfected result into the ultimate reality where the first person is all in all?
The very fact a cross was required, that the second person had to submit to that suffering within the system, that seemed to suggest a gravity, a weight that goes beyond just a fleeting thought or a casual dream.
It does imply a profound engagement, but the tension remains. This tension between the absolute weight of the suffering and sacrifice involved versus the potential conceptual smallness of the entire cosmos from the eternal view. That's where the analogy really grips you.
And that smallness, it's driven home even harder by the second metaphor, the water drop analogy. This one draws on Isaiah chapter 40, verse 15.
Yeah, this one is stark. The source stresses that entire nations, and by extension, the whole created system, every galaxy, every black hole, every moment of cosmic history from the Big Bang onwards,
All of it.
is like a single drop of water in a bucket, or like tiny, insignificant dust on a weighing scale compared to God.
Wow. I mean, we use modern science, cosmology, and we grapple with the immense scale of the observable universe, hundreds of billions of galaxies, maybe more. To imagine all of that plus all of time, all of history, reduced to the ontological weight of a single water drop in God's bucket that just utterly minimizes the cosmological significance of our reality.
It's designed to. The imagery is there specifically to underscore the almost infinite disparity between the eternal infinite and the limited cosmos. Our greatest empires, our most significant historical events, are vast cosmic structures. The source quotes scripture saying they are less than nothing and empty in comparison.
Now that needs clarification. Is that saying creation is worthless to God?
No, I don't think the source means it in terms of God's love or value for creation, especially given the extreme costs paid for its redemption. It seems to be a description of its ontological weight, its inherent reality status, when measured against the absolute, uncreated, necessary reality of the eternal infinite.
Its size and duration are nothing on that scale.
Exactly. Which leads us to the final, maybe humbling, necessary admission. The unknowable perspective.
We are the inhabitants of that water drop.
Oh, we are. And we are fundamentally incapable, the source insists, of knowing for sure if God truly considers our life, our death, our history, the immense suffering like the pain of the cross. Whether God views these as a genuine ultimate reality in the way we understand it, or merely as a sustained, incredibly complex, perhaps agonizingly real-seeming dream or thought construct.
We are just confined by our own language, aren't we? Existence, non-existence, reality, dream.
The Creator transcends all these categories, existing as the only truly necessary being. Everything else is contingent. Therefore, the ultimate measure of our reality, whether it's a transient concept that will fade, or an eternal truth somehow taken up into God that remains the ultimate hidden truth from our perspective.
We can analyze the structure of the dream, maybe map its rules.
But we can't know the ultimate nature of the dreamer or how the dreamer truly regards the dream.
So we just cannot know. We can't know if the Creator genuinely considers the creation to be actual in the ultimate sense, or if we are in some profound way the sustained, complex thought of an eternal mind. We're just forced to live within the immense tension created by that ultimate gap in our knowledge.
We live, we suffer, we make choices, we act, knowing that this container, our reality, is simultaneously the most important thing imaginable to us and possibly next to nothing at all from the perspective of the eternal one who holds the entire container.
Wow. Okay. This deep dive has definitely required us to stretch our minds across scales that see. Well, frankly, they defy easy human comprehension. Before we wrap up, let's try to synthesize the three biggest takeaways the source material seems to provide regarding this relationship between the two realms. What are the absolute essentials?
Okay, first, I think, is that core distinction. Eternal infinity is utterly unique. It's unchanging. It's exclusive to the Creator. Its nature is defined by that stasis and completeness, which the source argues is a necessity driven by the very definition of perfection.
And critically, it is not just the infinite extension of time and space. Time and space, however vast, remain a contained, created artifact, potentially subject to change or even destruction.
Exactly. That's number one. Second, the completion of creation isn't an accident. It's presented as a guaranteed necessary necessary step. It requires that specific transitional mission of the second person of the Godhead
The Creator becoming a created being.
to eradicate not just sin, but the inherent possibility of sin, that almost mathematical certainty of imperfection arising from free will over time within the time-space system. This ensures the created realm can exist eternally, but in a perfected, cleansed state that's finally ready for that ultimate synthesis with God.
Okay. Distinction 1, completion 2. What's the third?
And third, I think, is the humbling realization about our own tools. Our fundamental human concepts, existence, time, reality, they are defined entirely by our limited container, by the time-space boundary we inhabit.
And from the eternal perspective.
These core concepts we rely on might hold a vastly different, perhaps even negligible, significance. The Source uses those powerful metaphors, the entire cosmos viewed as little more than a water drop or dust, the entirety of history sustained as a single simultaneous moment.
Okay. Eternal infinity distinct. Completion necessary via the second person. Our concepts relative and limited. Those are the big pillars.
I think so. They frame the whole discussion.
So we have to return then to the inhabitant of that water drop, to you, the listener, trying to make sense of this. If God sustains the entire history of time and space simultaneously, seeing your birth, your life, your choices, your death, all as part of that eternal now, and if God views this entire vast cosmos as comparatively mere dust,
What does that actually suggest about the true measure, the ultimate significance of your individual life? Does the fact that all of history is a single, sustained moment in God's mind somehow elevate your actions, making them eternally significant because they are preserved forever in the divine consciousness?
or does the almost inconceivable smallness of the water drop compared to the eternal infinite mean that your personal struggles, your triumphs, your entire existence are, cosmologically speaking, just mere ripples in a vast, perhaps transient dream?
That profound tension, the tension between potential eternal preservation in God's now and the infinitesimal scale of our reality against the backdrop of eternal infinity, that tension remains. And it forces all of us to question where our ultimate significance truly lies. Is it solely within the subjective reality of the water drop, or is it found somehow in relation to the ultimate unknowable perspective of the eternal infinite that sustains that very drop?